Well, I want to begin actually from the economy and then work my way to some of the institutions in the budget. The inflation levels, as it is, the budget has some inflationary measures in terms of the taxes on some very basic items like fuel and coal. Now the international commodity prices are also showing some fairly severe signs of inflation. What is the government take on inflation? Is it not worrisome?
Well, we have been anxious and worried about food inflation, not so much yet about fuel price inflation. Our assessment, we took a call on this, our assessment was that this would increase to a nominal extent the inflation in non-food items, but it would be kind of one shot and that the economy would be able to absorb it. On the other hand, if we continued with a reasonably high deficit and didn't raise resources, there would be a bigger problem, a larger hole to address, and that would be a systemic problem.
So I certainly take your problem that you could not have had a larger deficit than what you already have. But nevertheless, growth is very good. And added to that, international commodity prices are not helping. Would you think that a double-digit inflation for any part of time crossed the mind of the Finance Ministry?
Well, it certainly did. As I mentioned, we ran through the kind of numbers that we were confronted with, and we genuinely believe that the double-digit inflation, as and when it comes, is not going to be there for long. The WPI is still lower than double digits, and while food inflation is high, but overall inflation is not likely to be not likely to go beyond double digits, and certainly not for any reasonably long period of time.
No, there is a cascading effect. The fuel prices get passed on. The coal prices could mean higher electricity prices. And of course, now it is iron ore and coking coal. So, whether there was any assessment on inflation even after the budget?
Well, not really after the budget. It's just been a few days. But our numbers seem to indicate that it's not really a problem, which will really be worrisome for a long period.
Well, let me come to the government borrowing program. While the fiscal net borrowing number was at the lower end of analysts' estimates, even then, a 4.57 lakh crore of government paper coming in is a large amount, and already the yield on the 10-year paper has gone almost 8%, 7.95 plus. Is there any game plan on making the borrowing program friendly, market friendly?
Well, we did try our best in the current year, that's 2009-10. As for 2010-11, the numbers are what you mentioned, and they are in the public domain. We will sit down with the RBI, who is our debt manager, and work out a borrowing plan. The idea is to see that it's as less troublesome for the overall market and for the private players who should come to the window and borrow more than they did during the current year, that's 2009-10.
Are you expecting that, like last year, the Reserve Bank may be able to do some open market operations?
Well, that's up to them. I can't really say what the RBI has in its armory, but they have a lot of instruments, as you know, which come in at a time when they are required, so that the stress and strain on the markets is not troublesome.
Well, I heard about the debt management office processes being underway. When do you expect a debt management office in the Finance Ministry itself to start doing all this borrowing?
Well, we have started with, as you know, the middle office, which is the first step. But it's still quite some time away, maybe 18 months to 24 months, before the debt management office really becomes functional and is actually in a position to carry out the operations. I don't think it will be a part of the Finance Ministry. That's not the idea. The idea is to have it reasonably independent, away from the Finance Ministry. And we don't think that it will be functional, fully functional, at least for another 2 borrowing cycles.
Okay. No, I was only thinking that the manner in which, the cycle in which our country is in terms of development, there will be an issue of borrowing for development. And therefore, would it not always want the Reserve Bank to help in the form of an OMO? Do you see all those issues being swept away in even 2 years? Some synchronization with RBI for reasons like this, to manage large programs would always be needed, isn't it?
Well, we will work out the contours as we go along. I mean, nothing is cast in stone at this point in time. So we will have a framework which is in keeping with what the international practice is, which is in keeping with what the country and the economy needs. And hopefully we should be in a position to slowly taper down the borrowing. It's not going to be as high as it is at this point in time.
Well,
That's the objective.
Well, one hopes. This is a growing country and a lot of governmental responsibilities are yet to be discharged. So perhaps fiscal consolidation could take some time. But let me come to the other institutions that the budget itself speaks about. The Financial Stability and Development Council. What are the contours? We hear that the finance minister could be the head of this body. Is that a done deal? Is that a decision taken?
No, it's not really a done deal as yet, but that's the proposed architecture that we have in mind. At this stage, we have a budget announcement, as you're aware. The finance minister is going to meet all the regulators sometime this month, towards the end of this month. We will put out a paper so that everybody gets an idea of what we have in mind. Essentially, the objective is not to supplant or interfere with what the regulators are doing, but to have an apex body which includes all the regulators, including the Reserve Bank, and to take a holistic view at a senior level. Because the government and the finance minister come in when there are large systemic issues, when there are problems that could land at the door of the government in terms of fiscal problems, as has happened in many other countries. So that's the broad idea. We still need to fully flesh it out. And as I said, in relation to the debt management office, here too, the process is going to evolve. We're not coming with anything very, very specific and absolutely cast in stone.
By when may you arrive at the specifics?
We will arrive at the specifics maybe in a month or so, and then carry it forward, maybe with some adjustments or changes as may be required as we go along.
It doesn't supplant the HLCC?
It does not, because the HLCC should continue and will continue as a body of the technical regulators. And they will meet, they have a lot of functioning to do. They will have issues to address. But there could be issues beyond that, which will be looked at now and then as the need demands, or as the situation demands by this council.
Okay. So how frequently do you think it will meet? Since it is looking at extremely macro issues, you think the Stability Council does not meet as frequently as the HLCC?
Well, our assessment at this point, and this is a very tentative assessment, is that it could meet about twice a year, unless the situation warrants otherwise.
So it's more in terms of if the macroeconomic situation warrants specific care or greater coordination, then it meets often. It's more on those lines that it's envisaged.
I should think so.
Okay. Well, let me come to the next item that the budget proposals speak about, the Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Commission. Any ideas as to how it may be constituted? Will it be a standing commission? Does it have a time when it will give its report and end? How is it envisaged?
This is still work in progress. The idea is that we should have an independent body, maybe headed by a judge, could be somebody else, somebody equally eminent, with a few members. They should be in a position to take a call, look at all the legislation, which is presently the law of the land, see what changes are required, what kind of things to bring in, if amendments are needed or a new legislation is needed. We are not sure.
Okay.
So that's the job of the expert body. They will look at those issues. Now, if you ask me the time frame, this is not something which we intend to do in a day.
No, certainly.
Or in a month. This is something the Commission itself is going to take a reasonably long period of time, maybe a year or so, maybe slightly longer than that. And they will then build an architecture, and putting that in place will also take quite some time. So I don't think we are looking at something before the next maybe 3 years or so.
Well, just one point back to the Financial Stability Council. I mean, a cynic's way or maybe a critic's way of looking at it could be that, the HLCC is headed by the RBI. Does it happen that things get a little unmanageable at that level because of the strong positions taken by the RBI or some regulator, and you want it resolved by the Financial Stability Council? Is that the right way of looking at it at all?
Well, I don't think that's the right way at all. I think that's a mischievous way of looking at it. The developed world and the developed economies, as you may be aware, are also putting in place these kind of institutions and structures. The US is looking at it seriously. The UK is trying to write a law on the subject. So the idea is that the regulators get together with the Treasury Secretary or the Finance Minister, look at the whole picture, look at early warning signals, make sure that what needs to be done is done, and that nothing really falls between the cracks. So the idea is not at all to encroach on the functioning or the authority of any regulator.